Hello friends, welcome back to Netcode-Hub channel. In this video, we're going to talk about performing CRUD operations using an entity framework core, that is the entity framework 7, and using SQL database as well. So this time around, we're going to use an SQL server. In the previous video, we talked about creating or performing this CRUD operation using SQLite. When you're working or when you're creating a project which is big for a production purpose and whereby it needs a whole lot of things involved, then you have to go in for SQL server. With the help of SQL server, the server can sit somewhere and more clients can have access to the server as well. So it is advisable to use SQL server when creating a project for a company or for a production, a large size of a production purpose. So how do you do it? So you're going to use a web API, and now with the web API you're going to perform this create, read, update and delete operations in it. Let's get going. So first of all, make sure you create a web API. Click on file, new, project. Now with that, you're going to choose a web API, click on next, and there's a name, give it a name, next, and you're going to use a Net framework version of 7.0, as you can see from here. That is the current one as I record this video. So create that. I have a project created already. Now we need to install some packages that's we're going to use, especially SQL.SqlServer. We need to install .tools and also entity framework core. Click on dependencies folder and right click on manage NuGet packages. Now with the NuGet packages, we want to install the following. So entity framework core, that is one. So make sure you install this. Second, you make sure you install entity framework core.SqlServer. In the previous video, we installed SQLite. This time around, we're not using that. We are using SQL server, so install that. And the last one is install tools as well. So you need these three packages for our program or for our application to run. Once you have that done, the next thing is you have to create our connection. So in here, let's specify a connection in the app settings.json file. So we can specify the connection here by setting the connection string, giving the name of our default connection. Then with the default connection, we specify server is equal to. Now we are going to use localhost. So we specify localhost. What is the name of the database? We specify it as. So let's see. So CRUD operations. That's the database name. Let's use trusted connection. Let's set this to true. And also let's set trust server certificate. Let's also set this to true. So that is the connection that we have. Let's copy the name. That is the default connection. Let's copy this. Let's save that. Now let's go to our program.cs file and let's try to register this connection over here. So to register this connection, we're going to use builder.services. So .add DbContext. Now in here, we're going to create a class that's going to hold our connection, and let's give it a name as app.dbContext. Now with this we have to pass an options. Now with the first option that we are passing, we set this options. So let's set this options dot use. Now you have to use the SQL server, and in this, let's get in builder. So builder dot, let's use configuration dot get connection string. So do you remember the connection string that we created? That is a default connection. So we have now registered our connection here. Now with this class, let's go in there and create it. So let's copy this and let's go to Solution Explorer. Let's add a folder, and that's going to hold a data for the app DbContext. So our program or application API gets organized. So let's set this as data, and this folder is going to hold a class name as. We're going to add a class, and this class is going to be app DbContext class. Now this app DbContext class is going to inherit from a DbContext class because this class has a connection to the database. Let's create a constructor. So click on this control plus dot. Now generate a constructor and pass in these options. So here we need to specify our app DbContext file or class that we created. Now here let's specify a table name for database. So we're going to use a table name, so db sets. Then our method is going to be for employee. That's going to be our model. So here we just add employees, and remember that there is a table, so we have to create this class as well. But before that, let's go to program.cs file. Now with this control plus dot, and now let's use this data folder that we've created. That's why we have this app DbContext file. So now we have this class, so let's go in there and create this class. So let's copy this employee, and now in this also let's create a folder and name it as models. That is where we are going to use to create a database table. So models as a folder, right click on this, let's add a class. So add a class, and on this class we want to name it as employee. So save that. Now with this employee, the first one that you want to have here is an ID, employee ID, and the next one that you want to have here is, so that's going to be employee name. Now aside from having the name, we can also add one more, and that's going to be age. This is what we want. Okay, let's make it as an example. So we need only this in a database table. Alright, so this means that in a table we're going to use these attributes here, this property that you set here as a column name in this employees table. Control plus period. Now let's use the models here, and we have this solved. Now we are done with this. What is the next thing to do? We can now go ahead and add our migration first. So let's go in there and add our migration. So click on tools, and I'll go to NuGet package manager and package manager console. So in here, CLS to clear the screen. Now add dash migration. So add dash migration, and let's give it a name as initial. So initials. So we are adding migration here. So it's going to create a database name as we specified, and I'm going to create a table as employees. Now it is done. So you can see we have a table created here, and the table has ID, name, and age for columns. ID is set to a primary key. Let's update this table. So click on data update, database. So update it, and now database and a table is going to be created. So this empty FrameworkCore is going to run some queries to create a database for us. So you can see at the end we're going to have create table. This is the name, these are the various fields, and that is the primary key. So now it is done. So let's click on SQL Server Object Explorer, or click on View, and now search for SQL Server Object Explorer. So you can see we have this database here. Refresh this. Now open the last one. Let's see database. Open this. Now you can see we have our CRUD operations here. So this is a database. Now when you expand this and you go to tables, let's see. So we have tables over here. Right click and go to view data. Now with the view data, let's switch. So you can see we have ID, name, and age. Nothing here. Alright, so let's go in there and create our controller that's going to use to perform this CRUD operations. So Solution Explorer, right click on controllers and add new controller. Now with this controller, we're going to choose an API, empty one. Click on add, and the name is going to be an employee. So because we're going to use to manage an employee, so employee controller. Now with this, we first want to have, the first thing that you want to do here is we want to create a constructor for this. So control plus dot, so we can inject our app DbContext file. So app DbContext, then we create an object out of this as app DbContext. Now control plus dot, let's create an assigned field so we can actually use this context. Now in here, the first one is let's perform CRUD operation. So CRUD, the first one is create. So create, and this is going to be HTTP post. So this is going to be HTTP post, and now with this post you're going to have a public task, now action results, and now we want to return a list of all employees. Okay, so now a list of all employees, so that's going to be the model control plus dot, and now let's use the model object. So now so that's going to be add employee, and now we pass in here as an employee model, then we add an object as new employee. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Let's store an employee, or we can actually check it over here. So let's use an if statement. So if new employee is not equal to now, then we want to call the method. So in order to call this method, you want to say app dbContext.employees.add. Now with this add, we add a new employee here, so a new employee, and let's call the await keyword. So await, then app dbContext.save changes async. We call this method to save the change. Then the next thing to do here is we can now return. So return, so app dbContext dot, then we can employees, so dot to list async. So you want to return the list of employee. So we have this, and now this is supposed to have an await keyword. Now if it is now, then return, we can return bad request. So you can return bad request. That is it. Now that is for create. Now let's go in for read. So with the read, so I'll read it, that is right. And now with the read, first want to get all employees, so task action results, then get list of employees. Okay, so we have list, so get all employees, then we can now call in for, so var employees now is equal to app dbContext. Let's first use an await keyword, app dbContext dot employees dot to list async. So to list async. Now let's return employees. So with the returning, we can actually return okay. Then let's return this employee. Okay, now the next thing that we can actually do here is let's see if we can actually cut this. So let's cut this. Now return okay, and we can now paste in this. Okay, so now we have this done. Now this return an employee. Since the controller, we can pass in an okay, which is status code of 200. So that's the read. Now we want to get a particular so this is read all employees, and the next one that we're going to set here is read single employee. So read single employee, and that's going to be an HTTP get, but here we need to specify it an ID, because you need to provide an ID and it must be an integer. So with this, it's also an HTTP get. Now in here, instead of the list, now we get only get employee. So get one employee, then we can pass in the ID here. We make sure the ID that we are specifying here corresponds to one that we have here as well. Okay, so once you have this, now we have action. We can take off one of these. Okay, so now employee is equal to app dbContext.employee. So instead of the async, we can use first or default, because here we're going to make a search. then we can have this lambda expression. So e max 2, so e dot employee dot id, the database table is equal to, that is the id, so this id. Now the next thing to do here is, let's check if this employee is not equal to null, then what can we do? Let's return this employee. So let's return this employee. So return employee. So return, okay, then we pass in the employee. Else, in case it is also equal to empty, then we can return not found. So not found. Okay, now we have read single employee. Now the next thing that you want to tackle here, so let's close one of these. Right, now the next thing is to update. Now update, now with the update, it's going to be the HTTP update. So now instead of the update, we can use it as put. So that is a put. And now with this update, we can return the single employee that has been updated. Okay, so we can call in for, let's copy this, the signature for this, and now let's paste this here, and instead of this, we pass in an employee, then updated employee. So we first want to check, so if updated employee is not equal to null, then this is what you want to do. Else we can return bad request. Okay, so if it is not equal to null, then let's have an, so employee is equal to await keyword, so await keyword DbContext, DbContext, that's our model, our class dot employees. So now here we want to check, so dot first or default, then we check employee, we have lambda expression dot id, so the id here is equal to updated employee dot id. So this is what you want to set up for. Now the next thing is, we have the data stored here. Now we can actually check. Okay, so we have it stored over here because you want to get all employees. So here we want to update, so not get employee, rather update employee. So when this is found, then this is what you're going to do. So we're going to set employee dot, now name is equal to updated employee dot name. Then we can set employee dot age is equal to updated employee dot age. Okay, aside from that, you can now set it for DbContext dot save changes async. So let's save the changes here, and now we can still, since we are updating, we can return that specific data. So await keyword, then to return that we can set up for return, okay, then this employee, and we have it like this. Okay, so now it's going to return the specific employee which has been updated now. Else we return bad request. Now the next one here is delete. So that is delete, and we want to return the list of employee. So let's see, you want to return this list. So let's copy this signature, and here public, so delete employee, and we can call it over here as delete employee. Now let's set it an int ID, because we need only the ID to delete that. Okay, so first of all, let's make a search and see if we have that ID in a database. So let's say employee.find this ID is equal to this ID. So let's remove this and let's set this as ID. Now if this is not equal to null, so let's close this. So we check if employee is not equal to null, then what do you want to do? Else you want to return not found. In case you couldn't find that, return not found to the user. But in case it is found, then we want to remove that. So app DbContext dot employees dot remove. So let's remove this employee. Okay, then let's save app DbContext. Now you can call in the await keyword. Then we can set app DbContext dot save changes async, and this is going to save the data for us. Alright, so now we have everything intact. Let's save this, and now let's run application and see what we have now. So it is refreshing. We wait for it to refresh or load, then we try to check what we have here. Or what we can do is let's close this, and now let's save this and run this application again from this time. Now let's check. Let's wait while it's runs. Let's see if we can have all the operations. We still have an error here, so let's say fail to load the API. Now let's check, supposed to be delete. Now there's no verb here, and that's going to be http delete. Simple. Let's see. Let's wait for it to run and load the data. So you can see we have all the CRUD operation. So this is post, create, this is read, okay, update and delete. So first of all, we have nothing here. Let's try to get all employees. So try this out, execute, and I can see here, let's wait for the output. This is an array, nothing here. So let's first update this. Let's create, so post. Now try this out, and now this ID is set. So the name here, let's set this as Frederick. Now the age here is going to be 20. Let's execute that, and this is going to get us the list. So we have the list here. Let's try to add one more, and it's going to be Hughes. Then it's going to be 25. So let's execute that, and you can see we have the other one here. So the update of the create is working. Now let's try to get the list also. So execute. You can see we have the list here. Now after getting this, let's try to update the list that we have. So try this out, and now in order to update, we need to pass in the ID first, the ID 1. Now you want to set from Frederick up to Frederico. So Frederico. Now the age is supposed to be, let's say 30. Let's save this, so execute that, and now let's see. So you can see we have Frederico, and it has been issued over here. Now the next one that you want to do here is to delete. Let's get for a specific ID, so we can pass in the ID of 1, execute it, and as you can see from here, we have the ID of 1. When you change this to 2, execute, we have the ID of 2 here. Alright, now let's see the last one, that is the delete. Let's delete ID of 1. So try this out. Delete ID 1, execute. Now let's see. So it is saying this is not found. Let's try to 2. So delete 2, and let's see, it is still not found. So let's check with the delete and see what we have here. So with the delete, we have to return the list of employees, and in here, let's see. So So we're first making a check over here, and we see we check if the ID is equal to this ID that we are passing in. In case it's not equal to null, then we're going to remove that. Okay, now when we remove, then we save the changes here, and we have to return the list. So let's get the list and return that. So let's copy this to get out the list. So we need to return to the list of this, that is a delete employee. So delete employee, we pass in the ID here, we check. If it is not now, then we remove it, we save, then we return the list of employees here. So let's refresh. Let's wait for it to run. Alright, so let's try again and see. First of all, let's get all employees. So try out, execute, get all employees. And now let's see, we have no employee left. Let's add one more. So post, try this out. Let's add, so Frederick, and let's set this as 30. Execute, we have the data here. So when we try to get our employees, we must get that Frederick, that is ID of 3. Now with this ID of 3, let's try to delete that. So delete ID of 3, try this out, and delete ID of 3. Execute, and now you see nothing happens here. When you go to get all employees, execute this, you can see nothing happens here. So that is a way to perform the CRUD operation using the SQL server. That is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I believe this is clear, and hopefully I'm going to catch you up in the next video.